Oh, the time has finally come.
It is time to finally fit the newly assembled Ecoboost back in the HPP Mustang. So, without waiting any further, let's go ahead and roll this bad boy straight on in.
Just to kind of let you know, I've done all the necessary prep work in advance, so you're not, getting bored by that, and I can get to more of the nitty-gritty of the process. So,
I got everything in here pretty much set and ready to go, and actually that needs to get tucked to the side somewhere. Everything is ready to rock.
So I'm gonna set the camera here up on the tripod, and I'm gonna start rolling her in, see what happens. I screwed up. Not just once, not just twice, but many different times. All in the last little bit of video that you just saw. Not only have I created a lot more work for myself and just a lot more time that this project never seems to want to end, created more money, of course, because I'm just good at doing stuff like that. Okay. First thing is,
I want to say that the engine is actually in the car, where it belongs, minus a couple transmission bolts. That's because one of the screw-ups I made. But before I get on to that screw-up, the main reason why a lot of these screw-ups even happened is because the first time I put the engine in, which was during that clip you saw, I went in, I got it wiggled in there, got it butt up against the transmission and connected. All was good. Until I went to go put on the nuts that hold the flex plate to the torque converter and realized that there was a lot of space. Then I realized that I put it on backwards, the flex plate. Yeah, I should have paid more attention, though the reason why I put it on backwards, which was a second guess type thing, and I should have just went with my intuition the first time, is because the diagram, the picture in the manual, the way it's depicted, it makes it look like the flex plate was in the opposite orientation than I was originally thinking. So I was like, well, the manual knows better than me, because there is a difference. If you put it on one way, it's really close to the engine. If you put it on the other, it sticks out farther because it's like beveled, right? That's why when I first put it on and it stuck out really far, I'm like, oh, that looks a little weird, but it looks like that's how everything kind of fit the best. I'm like, maybe I should double check the manual. So I did. And the manual looked like it had it going the other way. So I'm like, well, this looks more correct, but I don't know if it's right. So I just went with it thinking the manual was correct, and lo and behold, the manual diagram was not correct, or the way it looks, because it doesn't actually specify which side is which, and I really wish it did, but it doesn't. And sometimes parts even have which way they go like printed on there, but it does not. So I had to actually go back and reference my video of pulling the engine out to realize that yes, I had it on wrong. So if you ever do this yourself, if the flex plate is sticking out really far, that is the correct way of doing it. That was a real huge bummer, because that took me twice as long, because then I had to pull the engine back out. And actually, I didn't even get it back in there. I just rested it right here on the front of the car. It was still hanging by the crane. And I went and took the impact. I zipped off all the bolts again from the flex plate, and I flipped it around, put it back on. And this was all, it was dark. I was getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, and I just wanted to get the engine at least back in on the mounts so I could put the hood back on. And it took me forever, and I was rushing around, which is where quite a few issues came into play. The biggest and most notable issue is, hey, look, there's no fuel pump. Why is that?
Well, evidently, not paying attention, rushing around in the dark, I did not realize that I bumped the connector for the fuel pump, and as you can see, it's no longer there. So that's a problem. I didn't need a fuel pump, but now I do. I kind of cheaped out. I'm not getting a Motorcraft one, which I know is like a Bosch. I'm just getting like a Delphi unit, which I'm guessing maybe it's a rebuilt, but it all should work the same. You know, it's a factory style fuel pump. It's not like a, you know, super high output one. No fuel upgrades yet on this engine, so that I'm not worried about. I just need the cheapest part to get the job done for now. So, big screw up number one, because that's $180 screw up right there. The other screw ups can be expensive as long as I can fix it, and the other thing I can't fix. I'm just gonna have to find a way to make it look pretty again. But, okay, slowing down a bit. Going from that screw up, let's go on to the next screw up, which is with that transmission bolt. So, you can't really tell, but down here where my hand is, I am using and you can see it right here, I showed you, the custom mounts from MAPerformance that they sell optional for their short blocks, which I want to say, complete waste of money. You know, the short block seems like it has a lot of thought and work into it to make it nice, and I really do hope it holds up. But this mount is a complete waste of money. Do not waste your money on this. Because I didn't even know that you can still use the factory mount, but you can only use 3 of the 4 mounting locations on the 2.0 block versus the 2.3. So I thought that it was something to do with both mounts, and you had limited mounting points on both sides, which when I originally ordered these mounts, that's what I thought. I was getting a set of custom mounts to adapt, but it's not. It's just passenger side, which, mind you, only bolts in the 3 locations anyway. There's 2 spots down here under the turbo it bolts to, and then it bolts to the back of the block where it connects to the transmission. So it only has 3 points of contact anyway itself, so it's really useless. And the thing is, back here there's 2 bolt holes that go into the transmission, and the bottom one lined up fine. The top one did not line up the way it should have. So I'm feeding the bolt in, and it felt like it was grabbing the threads in the transmission housing, and I started tightening it, and it started like getting really tight, and it was like binding up. I'm like, maybe it's just kind of, you know, in a little bit. Maybe if I just crank it a little bit more, it'll get past it, because I knew it kind of wasn't lined up in the first place correctly. Well, I cranked it a few times more, and I heard a pop, and I'm like, uh-oh. I initially thought I broke the bolt, but I backed the bolt out. I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't it. And I looked down here, and I don't even know if you can see, it cracked right here where the the hole is on the transmission housing. So there will never ever be another bolt hole ever there again, unless that was repaired, which I'm not even bothering. But there's one right under it, so whatever. I think it will be perfectly fine. But that's screw up number 2. Screw up number 3 comes up here to the front. See, I had this packing blanket that I laid over the front of the car to protect it from when the engine hoist is up against the car, because a lot of people take the front bumper off. And it did perfectly fine. I had success doing this when I removed the engine. It kept the front bumper nice and protected, and everything up here protected. And I had success when I put the engine in the first time. But I guess rushing around, not paying attention, I must have not realized I wasn't covering part of the car with the blanket, and the engine hoist ended up rubbing, my bumper. So my freshly painted bumper that was put on from the accident is now ruined. So that sucks. These are deep scuffs into the plastic. The paint's completely off. So the only way to repair this is to sand it, maybe fill it. I don't know if, you'd probably have to fill it just a little bit and then repaint. Or what I'm probably going to do is just get some creative with some wrap and make that look pretty, but that's not anytime soon that I'm worrying about that. Obviously, getting the car running is the more important thing. Oh, and I didn't even mention, the frame rail here is all scarred up because the MAPerformance mount, it wasn't right. Like I said, it just was not correct. Something was weird with it. It wasn't the shape it should have been. And when I was lowering everything down the first time, it got stuck on the engine mount, the stud, and it ended up bending the stud.
Luckily, I think I got it bent back at least enough to tighten everything down. But I actually had to loosen the whole isolator, the mount, out of its its perch. And moving everything around obviously scuffed all this up. So I think I can just clean this up and cover it up with some, some of this reflective foil, which will be fine because it actually is a purposeful thing that I'm doing anyway. So whatever, I'm not worried about that. And yeah, as you can see, wrestling around back here, it chewed up the insulation on the firewall. Lots of damage happened in that second installation, and I even messed up my beautiful wrinkled finish here on the engine cover. Man, I tell you, that was not a smooth move. I should have just waited until the next day and then redid everything, but I've been on a time crunch, so that was my fault. One of those things where you try to save yourself some time and you end up making things worse, which ends up taking more time. So the last and final screw up of everything is over here. So the downpipe was originally under the car. It's been on the car the whole time. It's just been loose and laying down. However, somewhere along the way, because I was about to go install this, hook it back up to the turbo, somewhere along the way, this happened. Oh yeah. Yeah, it ain't going on the turbo like that. So I don't even know what happened here. I guess when I set the car down after I had the engine out, something must have shifted and laid on this, and it just bent the whole flange, this whole thing down. So obviously that has to get fixed. And this is some pretty tough steel, so it's not really easiest to bend back. So yeah, lots of mistakes were just made recently. Boy, I am just so tired. But that's what happens when you do things. First of all, it's by myself. I have no help. Doing things by yourself already creates a whole bunch of challenges. But then when you're doing things for the first time, you are almost guaranteed to screw up. The good thing about screwing up is I've just demonstrated this so much through my whole channel, and definitely through this whole saga here with the Mustang, is mistakes are the best teacher in life. And especially when it comes to all of these things, learning what to do and what not to do mechanically, the best way to learn is to screw up and realize, oh shoot, I shouldn't have done it that way, or I should have did this that way, or should have used this instead of that. You know how that goes. So yeah, I know everyone goes through this, and I give myself a really hard time because yes, it is extremely frustrating. Yes, it is spending so much more money. Like I am starting to have to get really creative with how I'm earning money, and I've even contemplating start doing some corner work, but I haven't got to that point yet, thankfully. Although I think I'd fare out very nicely, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, I gotta get some work done here. I got a new fuel pump coming on the way from AutoZone. It's like I said, just Delphi, but it should get the job done. I get this fixed up, and then we can resume back to where we were. So real quick, I've been kind of working at this, and I think we had it all figured out. Look at that. That looks a hell of a lot better. Let's see here. Than it did. So that should be fine. That should do what it needs to do. Because it also has that, where is it? This little donut gasket that presses up in there anyway. So while I have the downpipe off, I thought this would actually be a great opportunity to measure the inside diameter of this pipe, the factory downpipe. I'm sure this information's out there. I haven't looked it up, and right now I have the opportunity to find out. And you have the privilege of finding out with me. What do you think it is? 2.5? 3 inches? Well, it ain't 3 inches. Most aftermarket downpipes are 3 inches. So let's see where this one falls. We get about, okay, 2 3/4. Remember, you got to kind of give or take a little bit with these micrometers, especially ones from Harbor Freight, but they're mostly there. So yeah, 2 3/4 inside diameter, at least on the inlet side. As it goes through the catalytic converter, it gets smaller towards the end down here, which is kind of where the known restriction is on these factory exhausts. It isn't so much up there as it is down here, and yes, it looks noticeably smaller. How much smaller? And we got 2 1/4. So yeah, it goes down from 2 3/4 to 2 1/4, so 1/2 inch by the time it gets to this point here. But now that I got it pretty much squared away, it should be fine to actually bolt back up, which is good. I'm glad I was able to save this piece because I wasn't looking to spend $400 on an aftermarket downpipe just yet. In the future, just ain't now. I may need to do that if I ever want to get that 500 wheel. But this is perfectly fine for anything I'm doing now. So glad I was able to fix that. Everything else, yeah, we know what that's going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get this back in the car and we'll just keep wrenching. So this is where we're at with everything. I've had a lot to do. It's been a whole nother day and a half maybe. But I got a lot done. So yes, I got the downpipe on, exhaust is fully connected, new fuel pump is in, so that is good. We're already there. I have the intake manifold on, the throttle body on, everything's pretty much done here. The last 2 things I pretty much have to put back in is the catch can over there and all of the intake, and then the charge pipe here, connect a few more of my coolant hoses, and we're good. I am just caught up on this right here. I almost had it, and then I ended up busting my finger up pretty good. I had to take a break from it, but I think I know how to get it on there. But this is the dumbest freaking thing ever. Whoever at Ford thought this was a good idea needs to go to jail. In fact, any car manufacturer who implements this design needs to go to jail. They need a life sentence. There's no reason at all that this needs to be 2 belts, other than they can sell you 2 belts instead of 1. Right here. This, they literally could have put a pulley right here. Look, there's a space for a pulley right freaking there. So this is just pure stupidity on Ford's end, and I don't know if any other manufacturer does this, but if they do, pity them. So I'm gonna go ahead and fight this for the last time. I'm gonna get everything hooked up so we can get just so much more closer to that first startup. We are just about there. Everything is finally hooked up. We are all ready to go.